Today, lesson 9b, word problems involving solving multi-step equations with rational coefficients. So when we started this whole process of solving integers, we went through adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing integers. Then we went to combining like terms with integer coefficients. Then we went through solving multi-step equations. Then we went through word problems. Okay? Then when we started rational numbers, in other words, negative decimals, we did the same thing. Adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. Then combining like terms. Then solving equations. And now, word problems. So everything that we dealt with earlier, we have to remember the same exact ideas. Like when we solve equations, we solve the same way. Always looking to do the inverse operation and solving for x. And we tend to use a sentence frame of the solution is this or whatever it happens to be. And then all the same things that we talked about when we talked about regular word problems with whole numbers in them, the same things apply no matter whether we have decimals or fractions in them. So we're looking for important words like per something or for every or for each or things like that. And we put together an equation, and based upon the fact that I've been putting this kind in the homework every single day for like the last month, this should not be an issue. We should remember how to deal with word problems in general. Okay? And then probably the most important piece, every time we answer or solve a word problem, make sure you answer it as a sentence. So let's go to, and this is just a reminder of all those things that I just mentioned a second ago. So let's go to number 1 for today. Really the same word problem as the one that I just put up there, but now we have decimal values in there. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to read the word problem, set up your equation, and then stop. I want to make sure everybody remembers the setting up of the word problem first. So I'll give you about a minute to get the word problem set up. All right, very good. The x will go with the 25.50 because that's the thing that's changing every single time. Every hour we add on another 25.50 or 25.5 plus the initial recital fee, and that's supposed to be equal to a total of $279.25. From there, it's a two-step equation. Go ahead and solve it, please. Okay, so here's what we should have done. Obviously, we should have subtracted 49.75 from both sides. This idea of 279.25 minus 49.25, once again, you learned how to do that in the 5th and the 6th grade. Some of you are still struggling with that for whatever reason. But regardless, that is 229.50. So now, it should be obvious to you. We divide both sides by 25.50. So now we need to figure out, because of the fact that we're trying to figure out what that is, we need to set up a division problem. Now, do all of you realize that these zeros right here are irrelevant? In other words, we don't really need them. Do you get that? Yeah. It makes a big deal as far as dividing, because what that means is that you can divide by 255 instead of 2,550. That's a big difference. So 229.5 is the same thing as 229.50. So here's what I'm saying. We have 229.5 divided by 25.5. And you were supposed to be taught that what you're really doing is multiplying this by 10. Too many of you were taught you're just moving the decimal. That's not a very good way of explaining that, but I'll go with the way you were taught. I have recommended that you rewrite before you even start so you're not tangled up with where the decimal is supposed to be. Because this number is now 2,295. This number is now 255. So now the question is, how many times does 255 go into 2,295? How many times? 9. And it goes in evenly. So 9 times 5 is 45. Carry the 4. 9 times 5 is 45. Plus the 4 is 49. Carry the 4. 9 times 2 is 18. And 18 plus 2 is 22. And I'm running out of room there but you can see that the remainder is 0. So we get x equals 9. We need to answer this as a complete sentence. The question is how many lessons? So the student took 9 lessons. If you did not get that, fix it right now. All right, let's go to number 2. Everybody set up and solve number 2. All right, so number 2, equation would look like this. And I think that part is obvious. 45.50, we don't really need the 0 there. X plus 180.75 equals 544.75. We subtract 180.75 from both sides. Now we have to divide both sides by 45.50. What we really have here is we have 364 divided by 45.5, but we've got to deal with this right here, and so we'll have to deal with it right there, and you should rewrite this thing so we have 3,640 divided by 455. And this is the part where people are getting stuck right now because apparently in 6th grade you didn't do a lot of these, and you should have, because today is the day where we have to apply these things. But I'm quite certain at some point in either 5th or 6th grade you were taught ways of estimating. So for example, could all of you tell me approximately how many times 4 goes into 36? How many? So you know what that means? That means that 455 goes into 3,640 around 9 times. So what that means when you're checking, you should check 9, you should check 8. It'll be one of those two. And sure enough, when we do the division, we do get x equals 8. So what that means is that for this problem, it took Sam 8 weeks. And that's a quick way of estimating, instead of just starting at like 3 and then multiplying by 4 and then multiplying by 5 and so on. All right, let's take a look at number 3. All right, so equation for number 3 should be 15.25x plus 24.75 equals 192.50. Subtract 24.75 from both sides. That leaves us with 15.25x equals 167.75. Divide both sides by 15.25. Now, I'm going to go ahead and move the decimals. I know I'm going to have 1525 on the outside because I had to multiply by 100, or as you were taught, move the decimal twice. That makes the number on the inside this. Most of you have figured out or remembered how to do these kind of problems with big numbers, but another little tip here, you know, if you're having trouble figuring out how many times 1,525 goes into 16,775, look at something like this. 15 goes into 16 how many times? Well, guess what? That means 1,525 goes into 16,775, that first part of the division, around once. So either once or twice. And as it turns out, when we figure this out, we get x equals 11. Make sure, since it's a word problem, we answer with a sentence. So it took her 11 weeks. All right, let's go to number 4. Set it up and solve it, and then we will compare with our shoulder partner. Equation for number 4 should look like this. 55.7x plus 75.2 equals 353.7. Subtract 75.2 from both sides. Divide both sides by 55.7. So when you set up your long division problem, you would have 2,785 divided by 557 after you multiply both numbers by 10 or move the decimal once. And we should end up with Kara taking 5 more hours. All right, let's finish this up with number 5, and that obviously is the last problem for today. Equation for number 5 would look like this. 65.8x plus 50.45 equals 313.65. We subtract 50.45 from both sides, divide both sides by 65.8. Here we have another situation where some of you, a few of you, are not looking at that. We don't really need those zeros there because we typically wouldn't write that if we were just adding or subtracting or multiplying and dividing. So that makes the problem a little bit easier because you're really dividing by 658 into 2,632. That makes the problem a lot easier to deal with. But either way, we end up with it taking 4 hours to install. All right, we are finished for today.